So again, I want to acknowledge the work that you've done in terms of the session today. You've come a long way. I've certainly learned a lot in the process about how things operate, as well as the things that are important to you. I will be sending this out to you, so you'll have that to work from. But what I'd ask is that the next session is different in tone from this session today. It's a much more creative type of session. And what we'll be doing is taking each one of these topics and looking at them in a bit more detail, but from a very creative position of what could we do in order to move things forward, in order to solve the problem, in order to look at things differently. And so in doing so, I'll send out this list to you. I'd ask you to actually do some preparation work, because to be creative, it can take some time, and it's great if we can start the ball rolling at the beginning of the next session. So in getting the list, I'd ask you to spend some time to go through it and to actually identify for each of the different topics a couple of things that you think you could suggest when we come back together that might be possible solutions. Now, the one thing I want to be very clear about is, and it's very important, in that next session, when we're talking about possible solutions, you can put something on the table as a possible solution. It doesn't mean that we have to do it. It doesn't mean that because you said it, that we end up having to do it that way, okay? It's just an idea. And it's an idea that gets put on the table. We will work with the idea. It might go nowhere, and it doesn't tie you to it. You're not tied by that idea. And so you can be free to put something on the table. You can be as creative as you like, but I would suggest that you try and keep it within the realms of possibility. So, we don't have little green men coming from a different planet to come and help you out at work. That's not what we're talking about. It's talking about something that's within the realms of possibility, but to be creative about doing it. So if you can do that preparation work, then when we start the next session, we'll already have something to work with and be able to move from there. Okay, is that clear?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So look, thanks again for the session today. Thanks for all of the work that you've done. You've put in a lot of hard work to get to where we are. And this is exactly where I expected that we might get to today. So I really want to thank you for doing that work.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So great to see you back again. Delighted to be working with you on this difficulty that you've had. And I see the last time that we met last week, you made great progress to cover a lot of ground, and I know it wasn't particularly easy to necessarily go through all of that material. You'll have received the list, the summary of what we covered, and so today's session is a little bit different. So I'm hoping that we can be really throwing ourselves a little bit into the future. So what we're trying to do here is to look at how do we go about finding solutions. How do you go about finding solutions that will meet your needs? That's really important, the things that meet your needs, but also meet the needs of everyone. We're not going to constrain ourselves too much to begin with. I just want to go through each of the topics that we talked about last time and just come up with some ideas. Initially, they're just ideas. A couple of things I want to say is those ideas are just ideas. So they're not tying you to do anything. They're not committing you to doing anything. So feel free to just have at it, get those ideas out there. It's very tempting, and this happens all the time, so I won't be surprised if it happens, but it's very tempting in this conversation that we're going suggesting ideas, and you can immediately see why something's not going to work. We're not interested. We're not interested in judging or criticizing or critiquing an idea at the start. We'll come back and do that afterwards if we need to figure out if it's really a good idea or not, but we don't worry about that to begin with. It's just natural. You see it, you want to comment, but that's not what we're going to do. If somebody comes up with an idea, nobody owns the idea. Feel free to add another one on top of it, or take it another direction, or hybridize it with something else. Whatever, it's not important. The more ideas you have, the better. That's the most important. The more ideas you have, the better. So get it out there and put it on the table. And I guess that's all we really need to say for now. So you've had a chance to think about it. When we met last time, we covered a lot of material. So I don't know how we're going to get through all of that today, but I'm sure we're going to give it our best shot. I'm going to make a proposal where we start, just in terms of the timing, if that's okay with you. I think what we might start with is maybe looking at the topic around the workspace, the shared workspace. I understand that you're all on the same working area, and there's different people there. So I'm just interested in seeing what you might find as possible ways of trying to resolve that situation. I'm going to take notes on the board. Otherwise, I'll lose the thread of what I'm saying. So let me do that. So let's begin by thinking about the shared workspace. So what do you think might be an option that would work for you, or even suggest for now? Any ideas?
Well, this is an issue that has been debated quite a lot in the past. We did talk about this with Mary initially when you were brought in. It's not been easy, but because we're dealing with personalities. But an option would be to restructure the entire floor plan.
Okay.
And rather than having your team be in one place, having your team all over the place, or having the teams integrated. This potentially links into an idea I had for collaboration, but we can touch on that at a later time.
Okay, okay. So restructure the entire floor, integrating both things as one possible option there. Did you have any thoughts, Theresa, on what might be an option for the shared workspace?
Well, my team could perhaps sit in the center and then his team around us, something like that.
Okay, so center.
Because we're a smaller team.
R&D, surround by direct marketing. Okay. And just what I didn't say was all the ideas that you say, I put them on the board. I'm not giving any judgment as to whether there's a good idea or a bad idea. We put everything on the board. So.
Well, an idea was if the room is there, and the room is there, to move the whole team into sales. But
which team are we talking about?
To move R&D into sales. Okay. But that's simply because that was there. To put.
Okay. So there's room available. That's an option as moving the R&D team into sales. Okay.
Okay. We could also imagine that both of us sit together because there are desks of two, right, which are shared. So you and I sit together, and then we have our teams around us, something like that. Okay. But it would force us to communicate.
Okay. So managers sit
one way
together, right?
Looking at it, yeah.
And the team then would be radiating around that? Or
yeah.
Okay. Other thoughts? What is it, if you think about what the future, what was it, if you think about the floor space and where you want and how you want the team to function in the future, how do you think, what would get you there? You know?
Well, I do have four team members that are sitting in one corner, and then there is a little sort of meeting room where people can go and have meetings or sit quietly, you know, or have phone calls, whatever. And then I have the other part of my team, which is on the other side of that room, meeting room. So perhaps, because there are two people of you there up there, perhaps we can simply ask those two from your team to move in the next corner, and I can sit together with my team there in the first corner.
I appreciate that, and that immediately struck us as the easiest option, but that's where we're dealing with people, and the most obvious answer proved to be very difficult.
Okay. So I'll just remind you again, so it's an idea, I'm going to capture it as an idea,
sure.
And yeah, it may or may not be feasible, I'm not going to worry for the moment, but so you talked about relocating two team members from
Roger's team.
From direct marketing.
Or yours.
And to make space for, so how many people in your team again? You said 6, I think.
We're 6, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or
I agree, that's the easiest solution. That
okay.
Didn't work.
Okay. Okay. Other thoughts that you had in terms of sharing the workspace?
Well, but perhaps we can envisage, but I wouldn't see the advantage of it is to sit on complete different floors, right?
Okay.
but that won't help.
That was the idea. Well, similar to the idea of
Okay, so
moving
kind of a
into
hybrid
sales.
of
It doesn't
this.
need to be sales. It's just if the space doesn't appear to work for both of us.
Okay, that's an idea of building on top of an existing idea. So we've got moving into sales as one option, and another is moving somewhere else. So it's okay.
I think that's it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So that's good. What I think we could do, what I think we might do is we continue on with another topic, and then we'll come back once we've got a little bit of that done, so we can add a little bit more detail to these ideas in the spirit of the time that's available. Some people ask me what's the most difficult part of this job. And I can tell you the most difficult part of the job is taking the flip charts off. And I'll put this over here so you can refer to it. I'll stick that up in a moment. I want to get started on another idea. So one of the other topics that you had talked about was about these new recruits. And I don't remember how many recruits you had, but you're responsible for the training of these recruits.
8.
And I think we talked about specifically, we're talking about the work schedule in relation to that. So the work schedule was kind of like the big topic, and then we're specifically talking about the onboarding, or whatever you want to call it, the training, support, or whatever, of the 8 recruits. Now that we've talked about reputation, we're going to move on to go back to the beginning and add some more concrete details to some of the options that you previously had talked about, because it's really important when we get to the next stage of this discussion that you have something really tangible that you can weigh one thing against another, and so it's helpful to get some real specifics to it. So I'm going to go back to the earlier part of the conversation and take some of that material, and we can start to add to that, okay? We started by talking about the shared workspace. Well, I might start with the shared schedule, maybe. So maybe if we start looking at this one around the work schedule, if you just maybe looking at the sharing the calendar, I think that's a tool thing. Just share the calendar. So that sounded like something that wasn't really okay. Splitting into 2 groups. What do we mean by splitting into 2 groups?
Well, let's different options, right? I mean, because your division is larger, you have more people. Perhaps I can take 2 recruits,
And I'll take 6.
and you take 6,
fair.
and we do that because we're talking about the duration as well. I think 1 week is a little bit short for them to.
Especially if you're working on a specific project, we could allocate a month, and then do a rotation.
Do you want to keep the week, or is it 1 month?
Well, it's a month, or it'll roughly be a project.
Well, and we have, I think, project captured somewhere else, but okay. So, so we're talking about splitting the group. So the one way of doing it is groups of 2 and 6. We're talking about 8 people in total. So are there other ways of splitting that group that would make sense for you?
Well, we could imagine as well, because linking that into per project, perhaps we have, I don't know, 3 people on a project, because it will a little bit depend. I mean, I have this new project which starts now with the mobile app, which could be interesting for 2 of them to be on that project.
So they might be assigned. So 2, did you say 2 or 3?
2.
2 to be assigned to a project.
To that new project,
And how long is that for?
Or at least, 1. No, it could be 2, actually. It could be 2.
And how long would that be?
Oh, that's going to be for the next, I mean, we're already quite advanced, actually, on that project. So it could be for the next 3 weeks,
Okay. So that means already for the next 3 weeks that those people will be tied up, so they're already busy. Okay.
Yeah, they're already busy. Okay. So that leaves 6.
Which you could either divide by other projects, or else?
Yeah, perhaps you
But
have,
I can
do you have projects as well for the moment that could be interesting?
There are many things ongoing, but I could easily occupy them.
Okay, and in terms of like taking a couple of or some number of them for a period of time, like a few weeks or something, is that something that would work? Or
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know, because I thought 3 weeks a month is a good chunk
Yeah, actually.
to have people devoted to a specific topic or project.
So 3 to 4 weeks, something like, if I understood you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that week they get to do 2 big chunks within their 2-month placement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Inside the department.
Are there other ways of dividing by work project that make sense to you? So you've identified some projects. You identify some number of people. I mean, are there other ways of looking at it by project? I don't know. I mean, I don't know your business. I'm just wondering.
Another way of dividing, but the buddy system was also an option. It's linked to and yet not.
So how do you see concretely how might that buddy system work?
To have every one of the recruits pair up with someone on my or your team as their go-to person.
So we have a one-on-one relationship between
that could
recruits.
Supplement the
And
project system, where with any problem they have or encounter, they have one specific person to go to.
And so the role of this buddying system, would it be, it's like it's a point of contact person, or is it somebody who is that one person to go to if there's a question, or would they be managing their time and working with them day by day over the course of the 2 or 3 weeks? I'm just trying to understand. Is this an addition to whatever else that you do?
I see it as additional.
I think it is an addition as well.
Because that broadens the spectrum.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then
so if they have an issue, if they have a question, if they're not feeling comfortable about anything, they're working on a project and whoever they don't know what exactly to do, and the person from my team is working on a project as well is unavailable or whatever,
It's a point of contact, so we don't have to do all the hand-holding.
Yeah.
Okay, and then in relation to that, I just had a question in terms of if it's one-on-one. So it's there's 8 of these recruits, so there's 8 people that need to be paired with somebody else. That somebody else, we said it across your teams. Now, is that the way you see it? I mean, there's 8 people, so how do you see them splitting across your team? I mean,
it could be 2 and 6. It could be exactly the other way around to get another perspective, so that the 6 on my team get paired up with the 6 on your team, which is every single one of your team.
Which is too much.
Well, I appreciate that, but it would also give them the other perspective. I know that engages your team full time, but it is a position of feedback. I'm just saying that's an option.
Again, although we're making it concrete, it's still an option. So we don't.
It could actually be, because 2 and 6, the same split would be difficult, but it could be 4 and 4.
If it's 4 and 4 or 3 and 5, well, 5 still means that 5 of your 6 people.
Yeah, because if they're absent, they're on holiday, they're ill, whatever.
But it would be interesting to have both perspectives.
I understand that.
Okay, so there's a few different ways of splitting that work out. Okay, to put this buddy system in place. Okay, in terms of the group, in terms of the days, that was something that we talked about a couple of times. In terms of the allocating specific days, I don't recall we had written Friday there. I don't remember what that was about.
See, if we have, well, that's because I'm away on Friday. Okay, I work from home, and you work from home on a slightly more irregular basis. But I think if we've got a point of contact in the buddy system, that alleviates pressure on both of us.
Okay, so this is a work from home Friday.
Yeah, it could still be if there is any issue which can't be dealt with through the buddy in the project or through the buddy system, then the point of contact is on Fridays at least. It
should be you.
It's me.
Okay, right. So we're talking about allocating specific days as one way of sharing this work.
Yeah.
Specifically, that would look like Friday.
Well, if we did not have the buddy system, then I'm guessing on Friday you'd be the point of contact.
Yeah.
But
for everyone.
if we do adopt a buddy system, then the point of contact is always first them,
Yeah.
so as to not bother us
Yeah.
with things that can be dealt with.
Okay. Are there other days that need to be taken care of? Or we just talked about allocating specific days and we mentioned Friday, but are there other days that, if we were to split these 8 recruits across different days of the week, would there be a way of doing that makes sense? I'm just asking the question because I don't know.
Well, same thing. I'm less available and have less regular schedules at the office on certainly Tuesday afternoon and Wednesdays.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I am there. So
Tuesday PM and Wednesday, saying that Theresa is out, working from home. Reachable or not reachable?
Yeah, I'm all, not on Tuesday afternoons, but
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a way of dividing work that makes sense to be done that way, or is this simply the point of contact that we're talking about? I'm mentioning it because we looked at it as one of the ways of dividing.
I don't know, would it make sense that they work, that the allocation, that they work, for instance, 3 days a week with you in your team and 2 days with me? That seems very complicated.
But that's an option, but that goes against the idea that we'd split them 6-2, potentially 5-3.
Yeah, it's another option.
Responsibility-wise,
option, basically.
Yeah.
That's another option.
Yeah, I just wonder if it does it.
No, it could be a combination.
Because
it could be a
combination. But if we're going to work them or put them in the field project-wise,
then it doesn't work.
Then it doesn't make sense
no, it doesn't work.
to,
So it's only
to
for
split
those that
their
are
attention
not on
between
projects.
the two of us.
So there's a version. Obviously, there's a way of
we could
hybrid.
imagine an allocation.
Okay.
Whatever it's
if it's project-wise,
half of the week is with. Well, actually, we could have 4 people. Like, it depends on how many people are on a project, right? If you have 2 and 2 on a project already, there are 4 left. Yeah. We could imagine half of the week, 2 of them are with you. Whatever. Doesn't really matter, I think.
I think the key thing is that you saw that there's multiple different ways of getting this done, and there are many permutations and combinations, but obviously it needs to make practical sense to what you're trying to achieve. So you need to bear that in mind when you go looking about getting them on board, getting them understanding the system. Is there anything here in terms of the discussing of the content of the training? I mean, it sounds like a piece of work that needs to get done. Who can actually do that work? About figuring out what the content of this training actually needs to be over the course of the 2 to 3 months that they're with you?
I think we need to sit down.
Yeah.
We just need to sit down.
Yeah.
Is that joint between the 2 of you? Does it include Kevin?
Kevin, exactly.
Yeah, I think with Kevin and perhaps, at least the 3 of us to start with.
We need to just sit down and say, what do we want to achieve in 2 months' time?
We can actually do this perhaps.
So when might that happen? Yeah, that was my next thing. Yeah. When might you be able to do that?
At our earliest convenience.
I think we can try to do this because
we can easily plan a lunch.
Yeah, good idea.
Anytime this coming week.
Okay, so somewhere between now and next Friday.
So perhaps tomorrow, actually, Thursday, right?
That is.
Let's check with Kevin whether he's available.
How long do you think it's going to take?
Oh, it's a lunch, so.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at
long lunch.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how formal it needs to be for you. I don't know what content, how easy it is for you to generate the content. So.
Well, I think we have to prepare, right, for the discussion.
Yeah.
Just to say,
well, we can.
That's
but
what
that can be planned.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
Okay, so
immediately.
I'm going to say it needs to happen by next Friday, but it possibly could even happen tomorrow, Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay. And those are the players that need to be there. So who's going to actually take point on scheduling that? Because there's usually a little bit of...
I can.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to just write...
That's fine. I'll contact Kevin and I'll check whether he's available and I'll book a restaurant where we can go and have lunch.
Okay.
And I'll send the Outlook invite.
Okay.
Is that concrete enough?
Yeah, it's very concrete. Thank you very much. Okay. Is there anything here else that we need to? Oh yeah, hold on. Yeah, we talked about the mentoring activity actually.
I think we sort of
already got some detail. We've talked about debriefing after a month, and we talked about debriefing at closeout. So is that shared? I mean, it's 8 people. I mean, in terms of you both have to provide feedback on each of the 8 people, is that right? Is that the intention?
Well, if we split them 6-2, then it would be 6-2.
Okay, it's good that you mentioned that because I had maybe misunderstood, so it's helpful that you raised that. When you do the split, would the idea, if you did a 2-6 split, for example, would those 2 stay with you for the entire duration?
No, I think
for the project.
But there were changes.
Or for
we can do
the
a
amount
debrief.
Of time, yeah.
But we can do a debrief per project.
Okay.
Which might be interesting to go into the next rotation.
Okay, so debrief after a month, all per project.
Month/project. Yeah.
/project, yeah. But I don't think we need to do the debrief jointly. So I think we can each do a debrief with each of them. Like we don't have to do the debrief, the 2 of us together with.
No, I agree.
And also not collectively. I think we can arrange that however we want to.
Okay. But each of you is going to do for each of the 8. That's what I think I wanted to.
Yeah, I think that's important, right?
Sure.
And also, I think that links into the. Well, it's not linked to it, but organizing a lunch, I think, is important for them as well.
This is the social activity?
That's something we should also do within the next week.
Yeah.
I think.
Is that a one-off event, or what are the options? Again, we're trying to make it specify various options. So what might, rather than settling on one now, because you can settle on that the next time, what might be the options around the lunch in more detail? Is it a one-off event? Is it a multiple event?
Well, it might be nice to do a bi-weekly Tuesday lunch, but I don't know how realistic that is with calendars. And do we need to be present for all of them, or we could set something up, the 8 of them with the buddies?
Yeah.
Sense of team building.
So I can have one option, which is with Theresa and Roger, and potentially Kevin.
But then if we install a system, a buddy system, it might be just as useful to nurture those relationships.
Yeah. So that's another option. So either with both of you or with the buddy. So it's okay. A way of doing it. Are there other options around the lunch that could make sense?
Well, we can have a budget for without us being there, for team members to meet at least twice a month for lunch with them, and the requirement would be on our side that at least 2 from my department and 2 from your department are there, or something like that. I mean that those
sure, if there's lunch,
recruits are not alone at the lunch, right?
And if there's a budget for that, people will jump at a free lunch. Yeah.
So twice per month. This is different from the bi-weekly Tuesday lunch because that's just the recruits. Here it would be twice per month. There is an opportunity for a minimum of 2 from Roger's team and 2 from Theresa. Sorry, did I get that wrong? Yeah. 2 from Theresa's team. Yeah. To attend a lunch with the 8 recruits.
Yeah. And then we can have a final lunch just before they leave, right?
Yeah.
And
it's
we can
farewell.
Yeah. Well, they'll leave, but they're staying inside the company.
Yeah, but before they leave the department. Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So while, I mean, there's content here that I'm not going to go into that because you know that content better than anybody, and it's not me that's going to helpful in terms of the content that you're going to generate in your own presentations. But in terms of the rest of the material, have we covered enough detail for you to see various options that you can then choose between? Yeah. That makes sense for you?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Mm-hmm. Okay, super. Great work. Thank you so much for that.